Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to go through what may be the strangest franchise in horror. There's quite a few horror franchises that are a little bit weird or don't follow on all that well, but this is one I watched again recently. I watched all 4 films in this franchise and was struck by how tonally weird and how disjointed all 4 movies were. It was a strange experience watching all 4 back to back. The franchise in question is the House franchise. Sean Cunningham's supernatural haunted house monster movies, but they're all kind of go off and do their own thing, and we'll look into that a little bit now. So I'll go through each movie, do a bit of a quick fire review, let you know what goes on in each one, and give you my thoughts of the 4 movies that make up maybe the strangest franchise in horror. Get straight to it. So first up on the list we have House from 1985, directed by Sean Cunningham. And House sees William Catt, who inherits this big old creepy house. I think he gets it from his grandmother, who committed suicide in the house previously, which is not a great omen going in. And William Catt, he's in the house and he's dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. He's just coming out of a divorce. He's a struggling writer, and he's also trying to cope with the disappearance of his son. That, as well as all the Vietnam flashbacks. He's a Vietnam vet and is kind of haunted by his time there. In particular, his friend Ben, who was captured and killed by the Viet Cong. And yeah, that's kind of plaguing him a little bit. More on that later. But this is kind of the first example of kind of how tonally weird these House movies are, because this movie is juggling some quite heavy themes. The whole kind of divorce, missing child and Vietnam elements are pretty emotive, yet it presents itself as quite a playful, silly 80s film. And a lot of the times in this film I just didn't know how I was supposed to feel. So William Catt will sort of be dealing with, his missing kid, for example, and it sort of gives you a bit of backstory on that and explores how he's struggling with that. But then in the next scene he'll be fighting a silly rubber monster that's just jumped out of the closet, and it's just all over the place and a little bit up and down. George Wendt is in this as his neighbour. He's played entirely for comedy, and again it's a bit of a strange mark that he has on the film, because he then gets to know William Catt's character, and he opens up to him and tells him about his missing kid and his divorce and how he's struggling with it all mentally. But George Wendt comes across as this almost like 80s comedy sitcom character. So again, it all just kind of clashes a little bit and makes for a strange viewing experience. Kind of the horror elements, the supernatural elements are good. They're pretty fun. The monsters and the creatures in it are okay. They do look a bit silly, even for my standards. There were a few in this which I just thought didn't look great, and I don't know, again, if it's because of some of the serious nature of the film, but those next to those elements just made them seem even more silly and out of place. So House is a very, very strange film, and I struggle to know what to make of it. One thing I did really like, going back to the Vietnam element, is the Ben character. So Ben, who was captured and killed in Vietnam, comes back to get William Catt's character as a zombified Vietnam soldier, and he looks awesome. I can't criticise that aspect of the movie. Now, Sean Cunningham was planning on having Ben become a recurring character similar to the success that he'd had with Jason and Friday the 13th, but it never happened, unfortunately. But I did appreciate the look and kind of the story of Ben being killed and coming back. Again, it does get a bit out there and a bit weird, and then it ties back into William Catt's son. So again, it's kind of all over the place and just really chopping and changing with the subgenres and the feel of this film. And then at the end, the really strange thing for me is his son does come back. He manages to find his son, who kind of just pops out of the netherworld and is like, hey, I'm back. And William Catt's all happy about this. His ex-wife turns up and she's all happy about this, and they just embrace and have a great time, and they're a family again. And like, nobody stops to ask the kid where he's been. It's like, yeah, well, do you not want to know where he's been all this time? Like, What would you tell his school when he goes back to school? Where would you say this kid's been? So it's all just very strange and very bizarre. Now, House was one that I did have as a kid on video, and I watched it quite a few times when I was younger, and rewatched it recently for the first time in years and years. And I was hoping it might have a bit of a warm, nostalgic feel to it. But I gotta say, it didn't really make that much of an impression on me this second time round. I'd forgot a lot of it, to be honest, even though I watched it a lot when I was younger, and found myself feeling more confused about where this film wanted to go and what it wanted me to feel about the characters and the things that were going on. So it really is a bit of a strange mix, is the first House film. Not a bad movie at all, but it's dealing with quite a few things, and it kind of misses the mark on a number of those things. But it's got some cool creatures, some great practical effects, and I really do like the Ben character. And William Katt's an underrated actor as well. So it's an okay movie, but it's a strange one. Then we come on to House 2, the second story from 1987. And man, if you thought the first film was out there, House 2 really throws the rule book out the window. So this one sees a couple of guys, couple of friends, and one of them inherits another big house, different to the first movie, but another big creepy house from his parents. And this one sees his zombified grandfather come back to life in pursuit of like a crystal skull, and on his tails is another zombified cowboy who wants to get it for his own means. So there is so much stuff going on in this one. It's pretty crazy, but it does make for a very entertaining movie. So you've got kind of the horror, the supernatural, the haunted house. You've got cowboys thrown in, quite a lot of Weird West, and this one kind of really ramps up the adventure angle as well. This movie feels like they had a horror film planned, and then like 2 days before the shoot, someone watched Raiders of the Lost Ark and thought, let's get that in, and they went with that. So there's all kind of things going on in this one. Even the John Ratzenberger, who randomly turns up as like an electrician, breaks through the wall and goes on like an Indiana Jones style adventure, battling these Aztec people who are just randomly living in a world within the house walls. It's really crazy. There's a Wild West showdown at the end between the two zombified cowboys who want this crystal skull. And then in the mix of that, there's just an array of crazy, weird, random characters. Some of them, I have to say, are kind of cute, that just pop up in this film. We even have a dinner scene where they're all pulled up around the table eating, and that descends in chaos. And yeah, there is everything and anything has been thrown into this movie, like little sprinklings of it here and there. Horror, supernatural, creatures, westerns, all sorts. So it's certainly ramps up the weird and craziness of the first House movie. But I've got to say, House 2 is a very entertaining movie. There's never a dull moment in this, and I think there will be something in this one that you like or appreciate or get a smile from. Particularly John Ratzenberger as that electrician. I don't know where that came from, or who decided to just randomly have him go on this crusade within the wall. But I did quite like that part of the movie. So yeah, House 2, nothing to do with the first movie, other than the sense of a few weird supernatural things happening within a house. No connection to the William Katt character, anything like that. So very strange and out there, but I've got to say, very entertaining movie. I do enjoy House 2 for what it is. Okay, now we go on to the black sheep of the franchise, House 3, the horror show. This is the one that has absolutely nothing to do with any of the House movies. This is very much the Halloween 3 of the House franchise. But again, it just adds to that feeling of them not really flowing on or connecting in any kind of way. But House 3, now Sean Cunningham did originally devise this as a completely separate movie called The Horror Show. And the studio said to him, you can make a movie, but it's got to be a house movie. So Sean Cunningham said, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do that. Kept the script and the movie he had and just released it as House 3, which is why this feels like it's its own movie, but kind of isn't. It's House 3. That was the story behind that. But this one, when I first watched it many years ago, I didn't like it at all. I'd probably say it was my least favourite because it had nothing to do with the House movies. Upon rewatching it, I got to say I thoroughly enjoyed House 3, and I think it's a really good standalone movie, and it should have been its own standalone movie because I think it would have been more popular and well known than what it is. But House 3 follows Lance Henriksen as this grizzled detective, and he's on the trail of a serial killer played by Brian Jones, so two reliable people right there. And he manages to arrest him and gets him, convicts him, and Brian Jones' crazy serial killer character gets sent to the electric chair and is electrocuted and supposedly killed. But he starts to come back from the grave and kill people using kind of volts of electricity and sort of coming in and out of reality. Very, very similar to Shocker. This would be a good double feature with Shocker, and it has sprinklings of A Nightmare on Elm Street as well. But at its centre, it's mainly kind of a rough, tough detective story following Lance Henriksen, who sort of may or may not be being haunted by this ex-criminal, this serial killer, Brian James. So yeah, this one kind of drops all the kind of crazy haunted house aspects. There's no weird creatures in this one. There is a bit of supernatural in terms of Brian Jones's character sort of riding the lightning to kill people and stepping in and out of reality. But it keeps it to a minimum, and I think the film works well because of that. I love the performances from Lance Henriksen. He's really underrated in this film, and as I say, Brian Jones is really good too. So yeah, this is a complete deviation from the House film, so you'll have to kind of, I guess, know that beforehand if you want to get maximum enjoyment, because if you're looking for kind of the silly monster movie, B-movies that you had with House 1 and 2, it's a very different film, but it's a good film and should certainly be given more of a chance. And it's a shame this one wasn't standalone, because there's a more kind of serious, slightly supernatural detective story. I think House 3 is actually really good. And then we have House 4, The Repossession. The only one that does try to link back to any of the previous House movies. This one is tries to link back to House 1. But even then it makes it even more confusing. I'll get to that in a minute. But House 4, and a slight spoiler alert here, but it won't matter too much. House 4 sees William Catt and his wife, who is a different wife to the wife in the first movie, and their child, who is no longer the son that went missing in the first movie. He now has a daughter. So again, all over the place. And they are living in this big house in the middle of the desert, not the house they lived in House 1, just to make matters even more confusing. And William Catt also has a brother who really wants this house and will do whatever it takes to get this house. But they don't want to sell. Anyway, early on into the movie, they have a car crash. Unfortunately, it kills William Catt's character, and their daughter becomes paralysed and ends up in a wheelchair. So it's kind of the focus is on the mother. She's trying to cope with being a widow. She's trying to look after her now wheelchair-bound daughter, and she's getting a bit of aggro from the brother that wants her to sell the house. So again, some quite heavy themes in this movie. And to give credit to House 4, it does kind of stay within that kind of serious wheelhouse, albeit for a couple of scenes which are so out of place in this one, it's crazy. The first one, bearing in mind this is about a woman, as I say, she's trying to cope with this new life, she's grieving, she's bereaved, her daughter's in a wheelchair, and then they order a pizza one night, open the pizza box, and randomly the pizza has a face and starts singing to them, like both. It's so random, because the movie hasn't been like this for up until now. So they just do random stuff like that. But on the whole, it mainly focuses on their kind of troubles after William Catt passes away. And I've got to say, I do really enjoy that aspect of the film when they're not trying to do silly stuff. I was actually quite with them, and Terry Treas, who plays the wife, I thought she did a great job. I was rooting for her. I felt adequately sorry for her. She puts in a really good performance. So that kind of, the family drama side of it, which I don't usually go for, I did really like. but it just throws in a few really random things that just don't go. Got to say as well, House 4 has one of the most disgusting scenes you will ever see. If you've seen the movie, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but this one took me by surprise and I almost threw up, I'm sorry to say. And this one is in another scene that absolutely comes out of nowhere and looks like a really bizarre skewered scene from Twin Peaks or something like that, where the brother is talking to this, I don't know what he is, he's a local kind of mob boss. But I can't tell if it's a little person or it's special effects, but he's this little kind of hunched down creature person who is having problems with mucus, shall we say. And there is a scene from this, I won't say any more in case you want to watch it, but my goodness, it is like Salo level disgusting. And it's completely out of place. I don't know who thought of it, who thought it would be a good idea. It does not sit well in the movie and it is vile to watch. So just prepare yourself. If you want to see one of the most disgusting things you'll ever see in a movie, House 4. May not sound like the kind of movie that would bring it, but my goodness, it does in that scene. So again, a very strange, all over the place movie that on the whole effectively deals with this woman's struggle after her husband passes away, but throws in some very random stuff that would have fitted better in the first House movie, but not in this kind of domestic, heavy on the drama setting, if any of that makes sense. It's worth watching, but just be, as I say, be wary of that disgusting scene. You will know it when it happens. So yeah, House 4 on the whole is not too bad. So there we go, guys. That is my quick coverage on the 4 House movies. As I say, not necessarily bad movies. They're all pretty entertaining. They're all kind of all over the place, a bit silly, a bit random, but I do get entertainment out of them on the whole. Let me know what you think of this franchise, guys. I'd be interested to know if you're a fan of this one or not. And let me know which of the movies you particularly liked. So thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for more videos.